Is Buddhism a religion or a way of life? Have you ever wondered why Buddhism is so different from other religions? Is it a religion at all, or is it something else entirely? Most of the world's religions revolve around faith in a divine creator, sacred scriptures that dictate absolute truths, and rituals that ensure salvation. But Buddhism? It stands apart. It has no supreme God to worship, no divine commandments to obey, and no single holy book that defines its teachings. Yet, despite this, it has guided millions toward peace, wisdom, and enlightenment for over 2,500 years. Here's something that might surprise you: the Buddha himself never claimed to be a god, nor did he demand blind faith from his followers. Instead, he encouraged deep questioning, self-discovery, and personal experience. He once said, "Do not believe anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions just because they have been handed down for generations. Instead, examine things for yourself. When you find them to be good and beneficial, only then should you accept them and live by them." So if Buddhism isn't centered on worship, if it doesn't require belief in an almighty deity, then what exactly is it? A religion? A philosophy? A way of life? In today's video, we'll uncover the truth about Buddhism, its essence, its teachings, and its impact on millions of lives. We'll explore whether it truly fits the definition of a religion or if it is something far more profound. Stay with us until the end, and you may discover a new perspective that could change the way you see life, reality, and even yourself. What defines a religion? Throughout history, religions have served as guiding forces in people's lives, offering spiritual comfort, moral direction, and a framework for understanding existence. But what truly defines a religion? Scholars often identify three fundamental pillars of religious tradition: a supreme being or divine power, sacred texts and doctrines, and rituals or acts of worship. The vast majority of religions revolve around faith in a higher power, whether it be a singular God, as in Christianity or Islam, or a pantheon of deities, as in Hinduism or ancient Greek mythology. They also rely on sacred scriptures, divinely inspired writings that dictate moral codes, laws, and the path to salvation. Prayer, fasting, sacrifices, and ceremonies are integral to religious practice, performed to seek divine favor, express devotion, or attain spiritual purity. At first glance, Buddhism appears to be missing many of these elements. There is no omnipotent creator, no doctrine of divine revelation, and no mandatory rituals to please a supernatural force. Instead, the Buddha's teachings were revolutionary because they redirected attention away from external deities and toward the transformation of the self. Unlike most religions that demand faith in the unseen, Buddhism teaches that truth is not something to be believed, it is something to be realized through direct experience. One day, a man approached the Buddha and asked, "Is there a God?" The Buddha remained silent. The man then asked, "Is there no God?" Again, the Buddha gave no answer. Confused, the man pressed further, demanding clarity. The Buddha finally spoke, "Imagine a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Would he refuse treatment until he knew who shot the arrow, what kind of wood it was made from, and what village the archer came from? No. He would seek immediate healing." In the same way, questioning the existence of God is not useful for overcoming suffering. Instead, focus on removing the arrow of ignorance, attachment, and delusion. This story highlights why Buddhism is unique. Most religions begin with faith, a belief in something beyond human understanding. Buddhism, however, begins with doubt. It invites us to question everything, including the Buddha's own words. This approach is strikingly different from faith-based traditions that require unwavering belief in sacred doctrines. While many religions provide answers to life's great mysteries, Buddhism provides a method, a way to personally explore the nature of existence, suffering, and liberation. The Buddha himself emphasized this radical shift in perspective: do not believe anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down for generations. Instead, test everything for yourself, only then will you find the truth. This scientific, almost empirical approach makes Buddhism stand apart. It does not rely on divine commandments but rather on self-exploration, practical wisdom, and the pursuit of enlightenment. While most religions are built on faith in the unseen, Buddhism challenges us to take full responsibility for our own awakening. It does not offer blind reassurance but instead presents a path, one that demands self-inquiry, personal effort, and a deep understanding of the nature of reality. Instead of asking us to worship, it asks us to wake up. What did the Buddha teach? Unlike religious prophets who claimed to receive divine messages from a higher power, the Buddha's wisdom was not granted to him by a god, nor was it written in sacred scriptures before his birth. His insights did not descend from the heavens but arose from the depths of his own mind, forged through years of relentless self-exploration and meditation. It was not faith, but direct experience, that led him to enlightenment. Sitting beneath the ancient Bodhi tree, Siddhartha Gautama confronted the raw truths of existence. He saw that suffering was not a punishment from the gods, nor a test of faith, it was a fundamental part of life itself. Through deep contemplation, he uncovered the Four Noble Truths. A framework not for worship, but for liberation. 1. Dukkha, the reality of suffering life, in all its beauty and wonder, is inseparable from suffering. We experience pain, loss, illness, aging, and death. Even fleeting happiness is laced with unease. What we love is impermanent, and what we chase never truly satisfies us. 2. Samadhi, the origin of suffering. Suffering does not arise randomly. It is born from craving, from attachment to things that are, by nature, impermanent. We grasp at pleasures, cling to identities, and chase after illusions, believing they will bring lasting fulfillment. But like a mirage in the desert, they always slip away. 3. Nirodha, the end of suffering. If suffering has a cause, then it must also have an end. The Buddha realized that by letting go of attachment, by ceasing to identify with fleeting desires, one could be free. True peace does not come from controlling the world, but from understanding it and releasing our grip on what is beyond our power. For Magga, the path to liberation, the way out of suffering is not through blind faith, but through action. The Eightfold Path, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, offers a practical guide to transforming the mind and freeing oneself from suffering's grip. It is a path not of worship, but of wisdom, ethical living, and deep self-awareness. These teachings are not commandments issued by a deity, nor are they rigid laws meant to govern behavior. Instead, they are an invitation, a way to see the world as it truly is and walk the path of inner freedom. History offers a powerful testament to their impact. Emperor Ashoka, one of India's greatest rulers, once led bloody conquests across the land, leaving devastation in his wake. But after encountering the Buddha's teachings, he underwent a profound transformation. Rejecting violence, he dedicated his reign to compassion, justice, and the spread of wisdom, proving that the path of enlightenment is not just for monks, but for anyone willing to open their heart to truth. The Buddha did not ask for devotion. He did not demand worship. He simply pointed to the path and said, "Ehipasiko, come and see for yourself." Does Buddhism have a god? One of the most striking differences between Buddhism and many other spiritual traditions is its silence on the existence of a creator god. Unlike religions that revolve around worship and divine intervention, Buddhism does not place faith in an all-powerful being who governs the universe or determines human fate. Instead, it shifts the focus inward, toward the transformation of the mind and the mastery of the self. When the Buddha was asked about the existence of God, he did not engage in philosophical debates or theological arguments. He simply remained silent. But this silence was not an evasion, it was an answer in itself. He understood that pondering the nature of God would not relieve human suffering, nor would it bring one closer to enlightenment. Instead, he redirected the seeker's attention to what truly matters, the reality of suffering and the path to liberation. A man once approached the Buddha, demanding to know whether the universe was eternal or created by a god. The Buddha responded with a parable: imagine a man struck by a poisoned arrow. Instead of pulling it out, he insists on knowing who shot it, what type of bow was used, and the origin of the arrow's wood. If he delays for too long, he will die before finding his answers. This, the Buddha explained, is the mistake we make when we obsess over metaphysical questions instead of addressing the immediate cause of suffering. Whether or not a God exists, pain, greed, anger, and ignorance still imprison the mind. The real question is, can we free ourselves from them? Rather than relying on divine intervention, Buddhism teaches that salvation comes from self-transformation. Can we live with kindness? The Buddha emphasized compassion as the highest virtue. Not because a god commands it, but because understanding the interconnectedness of all beings leads to a natural outpouring of love and selflessness. Can we let go of anger and greed? Unlike religions that promise rewards in the afterlife, Buddhism shows that letting go of destructive emotions in this very moment brings immediate peace. Clinging to anger is like holding a hot coal, hoping to throw it at another, yet it is we who get burned. Can we find inner peace? The Buddha's teachings point to an unshakable stillness beyond the chaos of life. Not through prayer to a deity, but through mindfulness, wisdom, and deep self-awareness, history has seen many rulers, philosophers, and scholars drawn to this path, not because of divine commandments, but because of its undeniable truth. King Milinda, a powerful Greek Bactrian ruler, once questioned the Buddhist monk Nagasena about the nature of the self and enlightenment. Their discussions, recorded in the Milinda Panha, reveal how Buddhism does not demand faith in a higher being but instead challenges individuals to see reality as it is, beyond illusion. Ultimately, Buddhism does not deny or affirm God, it simply asks, is that the most important question? Perhaps the real journey is not about seeking something external, but about awakening to the limitless wisdom already within. Is Buddhism a philosophy or a religion? Throughout history, religions have often been defined by faith in a divine power, sacred scriptures, and devotion to rituals. Philosophy, on the other hand, seeks wisdom through reason, inquiry, and self-reflection. Buddhism, however, does not fit neatly into either category. It stands at the crossroads, blurring the boundaries between spiritual tradition and profound philosophy. Many scholars argue that Buddhism is fundamentally a philosophy because it does not demand blind faith. Unlike religions that require absolute belief in a deity or sacred doctrine, Buddhism invites individuals to test its teachings through personal experience. The Buddha himself warned against accepting teachings blindly, famously stating, "Just as a goldsmith tests gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing it, so must you examine my words and accept them only if they prove to be true." It encourages personal experience and reasoning. Instead of relying on revelation from a divine source, Buddhism places the responsibility of understanding the truth on the individual. The journey toward enlightenment is not about worship but about deep self-inquiry. Much like the methods of great philosophers such as Socrates or Confucius, it provides ethical and psychological guidance rather than divine commandments. While many religions offer rules dictated by a higher power, Buddhism's ethical principles, such as the Noble Eightfold Path, serve as a practical guide to reducing suffering and cultivating wisdom. These teachings align closely with psychological insights, emphasizing mindfulness, self-discipline, and mental clarity. However, Buddhism is not merely a philosophy confined to intellectual pursuit. Over the centuries, various Buddhist traditions have embraced religious elements, such as prayers, devotional rituals, and reverence for enlightened beings like the Bodhisattvas. Temples are filled with incense, chanting monks, and sacred ceremonies. In Mahayana Buddhism, for instance, followers seek the blessings of bodhisattvas like Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of compassion, just as worshippers in other religions pray to divine figures. One of the most striking examples of Buddhism's dual nature can be seen in the historical figure of Emperor Ashoka, the great Mauryan ruler of India. After witnessing the horrors of war, Ashoka turned to Buddhism, not as a religion of blind worship, but as a way to govern with wisdom and compassion. He sent Buddhist missionaries across Asia, built stupas, and inscribed edicts promoting non-violence, kindness, and tolerance. His approach illustrates how Buddhism can be both a state philosophy and a spiritual path. Buddhism is unique because it does not require religious devotion to be practiced. One can embrace it as a philosophy for ethical living and mental clarity, or immerse in its rituals and traditions as a deeply spiritual path. In the end, Buddhism does not demand that you define it, it simply asks that you experience it. Different forms of Buddhism. As Buddhism spread across Asia, it adapted to different cultures and evolved into various schools of thought, each offering unique interpretations of the path to enlightenment. Despite their differences, they all share the same fundamental goal, to transcend suffering and attain wisdom. Theravada Buddhism, meaning the teaching of the elders, is considered the most ancient form, staying closest to the original teachings of the Buddha. It emphasizes self-discipline, meditation, and the pursuit of wisdom. Monks dedicate their lives to studying the Pali Canon, a collection of scriptures that records the Buddha's words. In Thailand, forest monks retreat into deep solitude, meditating for years in search of enlightenment. Mirroring the Buddha's own renunciation of worldly attachments, Mahayana Buddhism, or the Great Vehicle, expands the path to enlightenment beyond individual liberation. Instead of focusing solely on personal nirvana, Mahayana practitioners follow the ideal of the Bodhisattva, a being who attains wisdom but chooses to remain in the world to help others awaken. This school gave rise to Zen Buddhism in Japan, which teaches that enlightenment can come in a single moment of realization, and the Pure Land tradition in China, where devotees chant the name of Amitabha Buddha to be reborn in a realm of wisdom. The legendary Chinese monk Xuanzang exemplifies Mahayana's quest for knowledge. Traveling thousands of miles along the Silk Road to bring Buddhist scriptures from India to China, ensuring the survival of these sacred teachings. Vajrayana Buddhism, or the Diamond Vehicle, is the most esoteric form, incorporating sacred rituals, visualization techniques, and powerful mantras to accelerate spiritual awakening. Tibetan monks engage in advanced meditative practices, using sound, movement, and symbolic gestures to channel wisdom and compassion. One of the most famous figures in Vajrayana history is Milarepa, a Tibetan yogi who transformed his life from vengeance and darkness to enlightenment through relentless meditation in the Himalayan caves. The Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, embodies the Vajrayana tradition's commitment to wisdom, compassion, and non-violence. Despite their differences, all these Buddhist traditions emphasize inner transformation over external belief. Whether through silent meditation, acts of compassion, or sacred rituals, the goal remains the same: awakening to the truth of existence. Buddhism is a path, not a fixed doctrine. It can be practiced as a philosophy, a religion, or both, offering timeless wisdom that transcends borders, cultures, and beliefs. Why do some people worship the Buddha? At first glance, the sight of Buddhist devotees bowing before statues, lighting incense, and chanting sutras may seem like religious worship. However, in Buddhism, these acts are not about reverence to a god but rather a deeply symbolic practice rooted in mindfulness, respect, and inner transformation. Unlike theistic traditions, where prayer is a plea for divine intervention, Buddhist rituals serve as a mirror, reflecting the qualities of wisdom, compassion, and enlightenment that practitioners aspire to cultivate within themselves. The Buddha himself never claimed divine status, nor did he ask for worship. Instead, he encouraged self-reliance, famously declaring before his passing, "Be a lamp unto yourself. Rely on yourself and not on external forces." When followers bow before a Buddha statue, they are not seeking salvation from an external power. Rather, they are expressing humility, acknowledging their own ignorance while aspiring to the enlightened qualities of the Buddha. This simple gesture is a reminder to let go of ego and embrace wisdom. Offerings such as incense, candles, and flowers hold deep philosophical meaning. The burning of incense symbolizes the purification of the mind, just as wisdom dissolves ignorance. Candles represent the light of insight dispelling the darkness of confusion. Fresh flowers, which wither in a matter of days, serve as a powerful reminder of impermanence, the core teaching that all things arise and pass away. urging us to live with awareness in the present moment. Chanting Buddhist scriptures, whether the Heart Sutra in Mahayana Buddhism or the Metta Sutta in Theravada tradition, is not an act of devotion to a deity but a practice in mindfulness. The rhythmic recitation aligns the mind, silencing distractions and cultivating inner peace. Neuroscientific studies have even shown that chanting can induce a meditative state, reducing stress and enhancing focus. Throughout history, many great Buddhist masters exemplified this understanding. The revered monk Ajahn Chah once said, "We do not bow to a statue of the Buddha. We bow to the wisdom within us, waiting to be realized." Similarly, the renowned Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized that the Buddha is not found in temples or relics, but in our capacity for awareness, kindness, and deep understanding. Buddhism is about wisdom, not worship. The Buddha is not an external savior, he is a guide, and his image serves as a reflection of our highest potential. Do Buddhists believe in the soul and afterlife? The question of what happens after death has fascinated humankind for centuries. Many religions offer the idea of an eternal soul that transcends time, either ascending to paradise or descending into suffering. Buddhism, however, takes a radically different approach, one that challenges conventional notions of the self and the afterlife. In Buddhist philosophy, there is no unchanging, eternal soul, Atman, that passes from one life to another. Instead, the self is seen as an ever-changing stream of consciousness, shaped by our thoughts, words, and actions. The Buddha compared it to a flame passing from one candle to another, not the same flame, yet not entirely different, rebirth, rather than a fixed soul moving from body to body. Buddhism teaches that what continues is a process, a momentum of consciousness driven by karma. Our actions create ripples that shape the conditions of our next existence. A compassionate life leads to favorable rebirths, while a life of harm and selfishness entangles us in suffering. Karma, far from being a system of divine reward and punishment, karma is simply cause and effect. Every thought, every action leaves an imprint, influencing not only the future but also our present state of mind. The Buddha once said, "Just as the wheel of a cart follows the hoof of the ox, so suffering follows an unwholesome mind." Nirvana, unlike Western ideas of heaven, nirvana is not a place but a state of liberation, the extinguishing of craving, attachment, and ignorance. It is the freedom from the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara. The Buddha described it as the unborn, the unconditioned, the deathless, a state beyond suffering, beyond identity, beyond illusion. Throughout history, Buddhist masters have illustrated this profound truth. The Zen monk Tukwon Soho likened human life to waves on the ocean, each wave rising and falling, seemingly individual yet inseparable from the vast sea. Similarly, the Tibetan teacher Milarepa taught that attachment to a permanent self is like clutching at air, illusory and futile. Buddhism does not dismiss the afterlife, but it shifts the focus. Instead of preparing for a celestial paradise, it urges us to awaken here and now. As Thich Nhat Hanh beautifully said, the miracle is not walking on water, but walking mindfully on the earth. Life is not about waiting for heaven. It is about seeing reality as it is, transforming suffering into wisdom, and living with presence and compassion. Buddhism in daily life. Buddhism is not about distant temples, elaborate rituals, or sacred scriptures locked away in ancient texts. It is a living philosophy, one that weaves itself seamlessly into the fabric of everyday life. Unlike religions that emphasize devotion to a higher power, Buddhism shifts the focus inward, urging us to cultivate awareness, compassion, and wisdom in each moment. Mindfulness. In a world filled with distractions, the practice of mindfulness, sati, is like a lantern in the darkness. It teaches us to be fully present, whether we are sipping tea, walking down the street, or listening to a loved one. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "When you drink tea, drink tea. When you wash the dishes, wash the dishes." This simple yet profound teaching reminds us that true happiness is found in the now, not in the regrets of the past or the worries of the future. Compassion. The Dalai Lama calls compassion, karu, the essence of Buddhism. It is not mere sympathy but a deep, active concern for the well-being of others. History is filled with examples of Buddhist monks and teachers who embodied this ideal. The famous physician monk Javaka, a contemporary of the Buddha, dedicated his life to healing the sick, seeing medicine as an expression of loving kindness. True Buddhism is not confined to meditation halls, it manifests in every act of kindness, from comforting a friend to helping a stranger in need. Non-attachment, one of the greatest sources of suffering, is clinging, whether to material possessions, relationships, or even our own identities. The Buddha compared attachment to a hand gripping a red-hot coal, refusing to let go despite the pain. True freedom comes not from having more, but from needing less. The Japanese Zen master Ryokan, after returning to his hut one evening, found that a thief had stolen all his belongings. Instead of anger, he simply sat under the moon and whispered, "I wish I could have given him this beautiful night sky as well." Meditation, if the mind is a turbulent ocean, meditation, dhyana, is the practice that stills the waves. It is not about escaping the world but understanding it with clarity. Just as a muddy pond becomes clear when left undisturbed, so too does the mind when trained in stillness. The legendary Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen, meditated in a cave for 9 years, seeking the deepest truth within himself. While few need such extreme devotion, even a few minutes of daily meditation can bring profound clarity and peace. Unlike belief-based religions, Buddhism does not ask for blind faith. It offers a way of living, one that can be practiced anywhere, by anyone, regardless of background or beliefs. Whether through a quiet moment of mindfulness, a simple act of kindness, or the courage to let go, Buddhism is not just a philosophy, it is a path to a life of deep presence, wisdom, and inner peace. So, is Buddhism a religion? The answer is both yes and no. Yes, because many people practice it with temples, rituals, and prayers. No, because it does not demand faith in a god or adherence to strict religious doctrines. At its core, Buddhism is a path of wisdom, a philosophy of self-discovery, and a practical guide to understanding the nature of suffering and liberation. It is not about following rules, it is about awakening. Imagine living each day with clarity, free from the weight of unnecessary desires and fears. Imagine cultivating a mind that remains unshaken by life's storms. This is the essence of Buddhism, not a system of belief, but a way of seeing the world as it truly is. And now, the choice is yours. Will you simply learn about these teachings, or will you begin to apply them in your daily life? Start with a single moment of mindfulness today. Observe your thoughts. Practice compassion. Let go of what no longer serves you. Every small step leads to transformation. If this journey resonates with you, stay with us as we continue exploring the timeless wisdom of Buddhism. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. We are building a space for seekers, and your voice matters. Awakening is not a destination, it is a path we walk together.